What makes you you? And when I say you, I don't mean the physical you. I mean the mental, the emotional, and the conscious you. Billions and billions of particles are oriented in such a way in the vastness of vacancy that they make you who you are. Would the orientation of these particles had been any different, would you still be who you are? That is the topic of today's conversation. Welcome to This is an Experiment.
Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas, and this is our first episode titled You.
So, what makes you you? As the introduction suggested, I believe there is a lot more that is involved in what makes us who we are. So, I'm going to turn it over to Nick, and I'm going to ask you, what makes you you?
It's an excellent question. My philosophy has been throughout life that everything, your person in the now, in the present, is a culmination of everything that has happened previously. And so obviously you could look at your own life and say that every moment and every experience that you have encountered and had in your journey through space and time has culminated into your existence at this very moment. It's why we're sitting here right now making this podcast. It's why the listener is listening to that podcast. None of that would not happen if it were for not the immeasurable amount of events that had happened prior to that within our own lives. But then you could extend that into our parents' lives and whatever happened before for them to meet and eventually make us. And then for them to, so you could keep tracing back for and ever, and then look at what does make you you. I think that at the end of the day, when you look at what makes every individual themselves, you could go back far enough and figure out that every individual comes from a similar spot. But I would say within my own lifetime, the things that make me me are my desire to be around people, to make people laugh, and to entertain people. I enjoy company. I don't like being alone too much, but obviously alone time is important sometimes. I would say that I'm an active individual. I like to get exercise, work out, and do things like that because it keeps my mental health very positive. When I'm not able to do so, it's kind of a bummer. I would say that I am a curious individual. I'm not someone that just hears something and says, oh, that sounds right. I'm always looking into it more deeply, looking past the surface level of the information and trying to figure it out. And I would say that I'm a problem solver. I like when things are challenging and there's a problem to be solved, and that's kind of why I went to school to be an engineer, because there's a bunch of problems that can be solved and we can use math and science to solve those problems. So yeah, that's kind of the core of who I am, and I think that's just, again, a culmination of the events that have happened in my life, and that's kind of where I'm at today. But Adonis, let's hear from you. What do you got to say about who you are?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like you kind of said it all. I think of it. How do I put this? I think of it in a much more philosophical level. I guess that has to do with what I study.
Mm-hmm.
I think of everything at a more philosophical level. But everything you said was pretty much spot on. To the overall, I do believe that the decisions that we have made as individuals and the decisions that our parents have made and our grandparents and so on ultimately made us who we are as people. And so it also goes into a different topic, a topic that we will save for another podcast episode regarding free will and determinism.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll save that for another episode. But how I see it, I believe what makes us are the experiences that we have gone throughout life. I believe each decision has a certain consequence. No decision is ever inconsequential. So I do believe that there is always a takeaway with every decision that we make. And so we try to make these decisions in such a way that it takes the least away from who we are or the goal that we have in mind. And so I think that is what makes us ultimately. And there's the whole argument of nature versus nurture. Some people are born predisposed to certain things, and the way they are raised or the environment that they are raised in activate those predispositions.
Right.
And sometimes they aren't predisposed to any of those, whatever they may be, and the society and the environment and the behaviors that they surround themselves with ultimately make them who they are. That's why that saying goes, you don't need to tell me who you are. Show me who your friends are, and I can make a judgment on your character based on theirs. Because ultimately, who you surround yourself with, you tend to become that group. You become a culmination of that group of individuals or that group of people. And so I think that's what makes us us. If we want to get more into it, I think like in a more scientific level, in a more like physics level, we are all ultimately made of particles. And I think all the particles that make us are oriented in a specific way that makes us exactly who we are. And if you want to go into it, for example, consciousness. What is consciousness? It's not something tangible, right? Consciousness ultimately, it's the most intangible thing that we have right now, and no form of science can really explain it. And there are theories, I believe, like the reductionist theories, that everything comes down or reduces to particles, and that these particles are oriented in such a way that it creates consciousness. And if they are oriented in any other way, even a nano degree off, that sense of consciousness would either be completely altered or it would not exist. That is the idea. What is your thought on that?
I would have to say that I don't know. I feel like that could be interpreted as kind of a bleak outlook, that the slightest error or something like that would remove consciousness. At the same time, it's probably true. I think I don't know. It's hard. I guess you could like consider like thinking about like the Big Bang and things like that, like the idea that just like a random event happened and then all of this like became, right? So that kind of same idea with just the individual, like what makes up that person. I mean, you say particles, but you could talk about like genes. Like every gene within a human being is functioning to create who that person is. And each individual is different. Each individual is special and has their own characteristics and traits. And so for that gene to be expressed, there's a certain condition for that to happen. And I think it's actually pretty amazing. I feel like I would say as a species, but I think for every species it's like this. There's genetic variation and differences, and that's what makes that species able to survive in this relatively harsh world. I know that humans have done an excellent job at mitigating some of the effects of nature, but that variation and that randomness, I think, has contributed to the evolution of humanity. And I think for it to be required that there be a specific orientation of whatever it be, particles, genes, atoms, whatever it is, I think it's, at the very least, it's amazing that we are here, if that is the case.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy idea that throughout all of existence, we are here at the end of the day. Like the countless numbers of things that could have gone wrong, even like through birth, like. The fact that we were born without, any complications is a miracle in of itself.
Right.
And then on top of that, our genes and our everything are oriented in such a way, like you said, that it made us who we are now. Like we are how we are now, aside from, you know, what we have gone through and what we've experienced.
Right.
The foundation was through birth, and the fact that we were born without, again, any complications is a miracle in of itself. And it goes to show that how unique each person actually is. Like I don't think, you know, there's the whole doppelganger thing, like people look alike, but I don't believe that there is a personality doppelganger, if you know what I mean. Like there's no person that is exactly like the other person.
No.
So
Because there's just no, I don't want to say impossible, but it's probably impossible for someone to, I mean, let's say you have identical twins, right?
Right.
And you, like, no matter what you do, just because of the way the world is and the randomness and what's it called in, I forget what it's called in science, but there's randomness.
Entropy.
Entropy. There it is. The entropy within the world. You raise twins, let's say you raise them exactly the same, identical twins, so their genes are theoretically the same, they have the same DNA, but you raise them in the same, you try to raise them in the same environment, it's impossible. They're still gonna experience different things, and because of that, whether it's slight or extreme, they're gonna be different because of the experiences they go through.
Do you think that's because of how they might be perceiving, you know, the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be. I mean, you would think that if it was a blank slate and they were actually identical, they should perceive it the same way, right? But I mean, as soon as something different happens to one twin versus the other, they're going to that's going to alter like their perception of the future things that happen. So and then from there on, it's just going to spread out and there's going to be differences.
It's kind of like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it? The butterfly effect?
Yeah. The flap of a butterfly's wings eventually will
creates a tornado or hurricane or storm or whatever. So I feel like that kind of applies. I don't know. Like one small thing that they may interpret differently than, you know, their twin could completely change who they are from that moment forth until, you know, they die.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, so what else are your thoughts on you? Just not like let's take that word away from like what we know as like you. Like what is your definition of you, or like what are your ideas of you?
That's a good question. That's actually something I've been kind of internally dealing with. I feel like for a long time I was associating myself with my accomplishments. So it was like I graduated high school and then I went to college and like I did all this stuff and now I'm going to get a job, and it's like I'm associating myself with what I'm able to do in my life and not who I am as an individual, which I think is like the completely wrong way to look at things. And it's something I'm just now learning, unfortunately. I feel like I've spent probably the last 4 years kind of in this space where I'm like, I need to accomplish these things to give myself worth as like an individual. But when it comes to defining like you, like how I see it, I think it's so much like an internal like decision. Like who do you want to be? Like at the end of the day, like I'm kind of like at the point in my life where I'm like, be who you want, do what makes you happy, and then like it doesn't really matter what other people think or what like how the world sees you. You are you, and that's your choice, and that's what you want to be, that's what you want to do, and that's it. So I guess it's more like of something that's like in your own mind and consciousness. You were talking about consciousness earlier, so something that you kind of develop within yourself, and obviously it's a reflection of your experiences and interacting with the world around you. But at the end of the day, if I think the defining like you have to consider like how you define yourself on your mental health, and like how you and your happiness and things like that. And so I think it's something that you internally do.
You bring up a good point. So I was actually thinking about that. I lost my train of thought when I was fixing your mic.
Oh yeah, sorry. What was happening?
No, I raised the gain up. Anyways, because you were kind of far away from it. Anyways, I think people get too caught up in the external image of themselves.
Absolutely.
So like you said, like people feel like, oh, I have to achieve a certain amount of degrees. I have to get straight A's. I have to get a certain income. They get so stuck on fitting an external image that fits everybody else's idea of what successful and shit like that is. We can cuss on this, by the way.
Ooh, shit. Oh, shit.
So people get stuck on this image of like, oh, I gotta look a certain way or I won't be accepted within, this group of people or that group of people, that they forget that is not them.
No,
it's not them. And when you said it's something internal, I completely agree with you, because I do think that is something that should be internal and not external, because ultimately the external factors begin from an internal environment.
Right.
And if you try to set a foundation externally, you will be lost internally. If you have nothing internal, then the foundation that you have set externally is very unstable.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you don't get that degree, or you don't get that job, or you don't get that car, what are you?
You're lost.
You're lost. You have nothing. You're like, you've been trying your whole life to fit this image.
Yeah.
And now that you don't have it, you're not worth shit.
Right.
To the people, and then ultimately to yourself.
Yeah. So
what you said, I think that was like a really important point that I didn't think of until you said it. So,
but I think that's kind of like, I'm just building off this conversation because I think it's interesting, and I think it is relevant to defining you, what it means to be an individual and have consciousness and things like that. When you look at like social media, like now when you're talking about like the external image and things like that, like it is almost people's like career or passion, or I don't know what you would even call it, but that's what they do now, is
they brand themselves.
They brand themselves.
Right. They are the product.
Yeah, exactly. And that their external image is who they are. And I feel like that would be maybe it is someone's passion and that's what they love to do, but like I just imagine that being very toxic, you know what I mean? Like constantly worrying about how other people are perceiving you, you know what I mean? Like millions, because I mean anyone can go on social media, so it's how, I don't know, I feel like that'd be maybe it's something that they figured out, you know what I mean? It's something they have to learn for themselves, because I just don't know how you would constantly be worrying about how other people see you. Maybe it is that they've figured out who they are as an individual, and they then are able to portray their truthful version of themselves and who they think they are, and then people enjoy that and they absorb that content and they're like, wow, like this is an awesome person. But I think there's those people, and they can do it, and it's fine and it's healthy and it's not toxic. But then there's also people that are like portraying an image, pretending to be someone, and you see these things where there's like people that are like actually depressed and they need help because it's like they're acting a lie, like they're pretending to be someone that they're not. So they didn't, strengthen that internal foundation that you're talking about. They just built up the external one, and then when someone starts shooting shots or tearing them down or saying, hey, you're a fake or whatever it is, then they have nothing to lean on. Like, no, I know who I am as a person. Well, they don't, because they had just built themselves up as something else, and now it's getting torn down.
Yeah, I agree. I do definitely think that there's both sides of the coin. There are people that stay true to themselves, and what they portray on social media or on YouTube or whatever, that's who they are as individuals. And you'll see it, because even when they get criticized from whoever, they don't change, because that's who they are.
Yeah.
And they know that. Whereas you see, I don't want to point any fingers or anything, but just Instagram, I feel like, is a really good model to go off of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of individuals on Instagram where you can just tell, like when you see a post or when you see them write a caption or share a story, you know, like that's not you, and you know that's not you, yet you're still portraying this image.
Yeah.
It's because they become this product,
Mm-hmm.
right? They lose their humanity and they become a product, an
Right.
object.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have to sell this object to the masses, because if they don't sell this object, they won't get this 10 minute high that they get from
Right.
the followers, the messages, the likes, the comments. They lose who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they never knew who they were, but they lost. They move further away from their humanity.
Right.
And so that's why, like, the whole thing, you know, seeing people as objects, men and women,
Mm-hmm.
seeing them as objects, it's because I don't want to say that's how they portray themselves, but I feel like that plays a role in why they are perceived as objects.
Yeah.
You know, like there are people like fitness models. That's who they are. They're into fitness, so of course they're going to post their bodies and
Yeah.
you know, show their achievements, their aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people who, you know, they just post for the likes.
Right.
And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so you take that away, what are they?
Mm-hmm.
If you take Instagram away, if you take TikTok away, what else? Snapchat, Twitter, you remove these mediums that they use to project themselves.
Mhm.
What are they? Are they anything? Maybe they are. I don't know. I'm not going to judge, but you know,
Yeah, no.
it begs the question.
Yeah, like it's interesting because like you'll see like doctors, right? And they have like Instagram pages or YouTubes or a YouTube channel and things like that, and it's like they're showing what their craft is and what their passion is, and they're using social media as a platform to discuss it as a topic or to show their talents and things like that. And I think that's awesome. I see that stuff and I'm like, wow, that is like some genuine content. That's like some really like valuable stuff. And it's who they are, right? But then you have other people that are literally, you can tell they're just doing stuff for likes, for views. And I think a small percentage of that is like their career and passion, and that's what they do. And then other people, it's not. It's just that's what they're doing just because they think, because yeah, it gives them a high. It's like a euphoria of people giving you attention. It's interesting though, like when you're talking about like Instagram, the if you look back at like time, like look back like really far on like people's like not channels but pages, and you see like the quality of the photos and like what they're posting. Like Instagram originally they made the app to just share photos of yourself,
And now it's way more than that.
it's so much more than that. And it's just interesting how far away we've drifted away from like what we were talking about, you as an individual, showing off you. What do you like? What are you doing? What do you enjoy? Who are you? Like, right? And now it's, what is your brand? What are you selling? What can you offer me? What, like, you know what I'm saying? It's much more about the consumer and less about just people being people.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, you bring up another really good point on the whole topic of who are you.
Mm-hmm.
You could also view it in this case now, especially with, you know, the technology that we have in social media in general. I feel like you become what you portray.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that might not be who you truly are, you become that.
Yeah.
You become this person that you portray on social media, because to the masses, that is who you are. Internally, again, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could be. I don't know. Chances are that's not you.
Mm-hmm.
But you become this person,
Yeah.
and then you slowly you push. You try to push to become this person internally eventually. But again, as soon as the social media is gone, are you still that person? Are you still this person that pranks everybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or are you pranking just because it gets the likes?
Yeah.
Most of these people, they've admitted like they prank because it gets likes, it gets
Right.
comments, shares, views, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I think all of this comes down to like social media. All of this comes down to numbers. Who can get the most likes, the most followers, the most views? That's why you're slowly starting to see applications like Instagram and Twitter. They're removing like likes. They're removing the number, the numerical like. They're putting, for example, it'll put like one person's name, like let's say John, Andy, and thousands of others people like the photo. That's what it says now. It doesn't say like John, Andy, and 200 other people. It says John, Andy, and thousands of other people. There's no longer a numeric number.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's in some states or some countries. I haven't seen it here in the Bay Area or Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And then Twitter, they've talked about removing the followers or like making that number like smaller, so it's not like or in the interface trying to move it so it's not like a relevant thing that people see when they go on your profile, right? Like when you go on somebody's profile, first thing you probably look at is their followers and their following, right?
Yeah.
How many followers they have 1 million. Oh, they're big shot.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to move these around and kind of hide them
Right.
from the person in the interface. So it's an experiment. I don't know. This is an experiment. It's an experiment because you'll see like you remove these things and you'll slowly see probably a change.
Oh yeah.
Because if the numerics aren't there, why does it matter?
Exactly. It's like a currency basically.
It's a currency.
Yeah.
Who has the most money? Who has, who gets the biggest check?
Yeah.
You remove the numeric, it becomes ambiguous.
I kind of like am curious what the point in having other people see who was following, and what I'm saying, like what was the point of that to begin with?
I
I go on your profile, I can see
like our mutuals.
Like there's mutuals, but I'm saying like if I go on your profile right now, I can click on your followers.
Mm-hmm.
Not only, I can see the number, right? And I can like, why do I need to know a number? You know what I mean? Like, why do I need to know how many people follow you? What relevancy does that have to me?
Oh, so you're saying it should just be followers rather than
just why can't it just say following it and followers? And if I want to see who follows you, or if I want to see, then I click on that, and it's obviously I'd have to scroll. I guess I could keep scrolling. Like let's say you have 100,000 followers, I would have to keep scrolling through 100,000 names because I'd be like, oh, then I would figure out, oh shit, he has 100,000 followers. But what if it was like, why now does it have to be like, okay, I click on your profile, it says Adonis has 100,000 followers. Why? What does that do for me?
Absolutely nothing.
It just
makes you feel bad.
Exactly.
Makes you feel like
so
shit.
Why was that ever like? And again, like if you're gonna know you have 100,000 followers. I'm not saying on your page, like they have the capability of saying if the individual user is looking at their profile, they can see how many followers they have. That should make you proud that you have that many followers or whatever feeling. It
Why
gives
is it
you.
necessary for the
Exactly.
third party to
Exactly.
see it or whatever?
Exactly.
Who knows? So you're saying like, for example, it should just be like my name, my picture, and then it should have like a tab, followers, and then following.
Yeah.
But no number.
No number.
I think that's what Twitter wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've done it or they said fuck that.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they want to do. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it probably comes down to the number, right? Like if I think it also has to do with keeping people on the platform because it becomes an addiction, right? Like you get 200, 300 likes, you become addicted.
Yeah.
You want more. So you're going to keep posting on that app to get more.
Yeah.
So it could be like an addiction because if you remove the numbers, people aren't going to give a fuck about posting. They don't care about, oh, whatever. Like I'll post this picture, but if I don't see some feedback, if I don't see a number, then what's the point of
There's
posting?
no incentive.
There's no incentive. Exactly. There's no incentive to continue posting.
Right.
So I think that's why. I think it has to do with keeping people on the platform and using these cues, these numbers, these metrics to keep them there.
Yeah.
So
It's all part of an experiment.
It is, and yeah. So I mean, we're 30 minutes in. Did you want to add anything else? Anything?
No, I mean, I liked where this went with the discussion of you as an individual.
It really kind of opened up.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly do think that our now, like, I mean, even now and then in the future, we're gonna see that the virtual person, that person on Instagram, that profile on Instagram or Twitter or whatever the social media platform is going to be so much of an extension of ourselves that it's
kind of like an avatar.
that will be that is you too. You know what I mean? And it could get to and it could get to the point where it's like that is more so you than you are yourself. Yeah. So like you could be an individual, but you could also build a avatar or whatever you want to call it on these social media platforms that has the same name as you, looks like you, but is a completely different person.
Yeah.
So then we start getting into this, who actually are you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that kind of goes back to the whole thing about, what was it? Losing your humanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, like you said, technology might get to a point where it's, where discerning somebody between their virtual self and their physical self, that line like becomes blurry.
Right.
So, I mean, will technology eventually get there? Probably. I mean, we've seen it. Like there have been, you know, like games like MMORPGs or RPG games like World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you're kind of limited to what you can do in those games.
Yeah.
But there are games like, even in the past, like there was a game called Second Life. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Where you create an avatar.
Literally, yeah.
And that becomes you.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, you know, that was like in like 2000, 2001 or whatever year that game came out in. But as technology advances, I do think that this whole idea of like a simulated avatar will become a deeper interpretation of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that will also be interesting to see. Well, because I feel like a lot of people, they can't portray themselves how they want in the physical world.
Right.
So they'll do that in a non-physical world.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be, who knows? I mean, we'll see.
We'll see who you are.
We'll see who you
future.
are in the future.
Yeah.
And anything else?
No.
Yeah.
I have nothing else.
So yeah, I mean, in closing, I guess once we're constantly the world, technology, it's constantly changing. And it just seems that society and self-worth is defined by metrics,
Mm-hmm.
defined by numbers. And so if these numbers do get removed, like we talked about, we will see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. And at the end of the day, this is an experiment.
That it is.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.